Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got something a little different for you today. One of the guys at the field brought me one of the new Specna Arms Edge series with the pre-installed Aster. He had shredded his bevel gear, and so he wanted me to repair it. And I very excitedly said, "Of course I'll do it," because I've been eyeing these things for quite a while. I know lately this year you haven't seen it, but I really love AK platforms and I love to run them. I haven't had any working this year, so I've been using AR platforms, which has made me sad. But when this came out, I was quite excited because if you don't know, the AK system, the V3 gearbox, has been kind of neglected because it's worked so well as it is. While the AR platform V2 gearboxes get all these nice improvements and these ease of life upgrades, like quick change springs and even the buffer tube system like SEMA has, and all of these MOSFETs out of the box, AKs were really falling behind the curve. In the past like year or two, manufacturers have started to realize this and have started to catch up. LCT's doing it now, ENL's doing it now with pre-installed aftermarket MOSFETs, quick change springs, and this was one of the ones I was eyeing due to its price point around 270. That's a little bit more than a SEMA standard, but not quite the price of like an ENL or an LCT. So I was like, dope. Are these gonna be like the new base gun? Like, are these gonna be the ones you buy and build off of? Is really what I was wondering. So I was really excited to open it, and we're gonna go through it, and I'm gonna tell you what I saw and what I liked and what I didn't like. And this is gonna be kind of like a comprehensive internal breakdown of the Specna Arms, and I'm gonna touch a little bit on the externals as well. But really, the meat and potatoes of this thing is on the inside and what it comes with. In the mindset of buying a base gun and taking care of it and upgrading it over time, and really the longevity of the rifle as a whole. I got some really nice insights thanks to my buddy letting me work on his rifle. So let's get right into it. Alrighty, folks. Let's break down the externals of the Specna arm, right? I would say it is almost one-to-one comparable with the SEMA standard. All right, similar materials, similar build style, um, similar quality. I will say the Specna's QC is probably a little bit better as far as externals go, but I would definitely say they don't match up to like an LCT or an ENL. So definitely keep that in mind if you want to buy one. The body at some point will probably give out, and probably much sooner than an ENL or an LCT would. However, I will say they're probably more user friendly due to that fact. But let's move on to the next chapter. Not much to say here. Let's just keep going. Hey guys, let's talk Gearbox and some other improvements that they did just overall on this rifle, right? So the Gearbox quality, probably similar to a SEMA. It's not fantastic, but it's a V3. Very rarely do V3s break. In my like 6 years of playing, I finally had one broke on me, and it was in a saw, so it makes sense. But this gearbox, they've made it quick change, which V3 gearboxes and AKs as a whole, LCT and ENL were the only ones doing it. Now Specna's releasing them with a quick change, which is really nice. M4s have been doing it for a long time. V3s are finally catching up. In addition to that, it has decent bearings. I wouldn't trust stock bearings. Stock bushings you can kind of get away with, but stock bearings are probably going to break. I've seen a few fail. It's not pleasant when they do go. I will say that the stock bearings in this gearbox, however, are really flat, which means you can easily shim your gears to the gearbox. Usually bearings and bushings, especially stock ones, will sit higher in the shell, which means you have less space to shim your gears. But these ones are pretty smooth. They're pretty flat. I was actually impressed by that. Um, Now let's talk some things outside of the gearbox, right? So the Specna Arms comes with a mag plate that sits in the mag well, like the ENLs do. However, I will say it is a much better design than the ENLs. The ENLs is kind of tricky to get out. They're bulky. They're annoying. The Specna is a flat plate that just screws in, and it's easy to drop out. It's super convenient, and it works pretty well. So I like how they took an already known feature and they kind of streamlined it and made it a little bit nicer. Um, I'm glad to see it. As far as the back of the gearbox, where the quick changes, they use a metal bar system. My Dytac AK uses the same exact system, however, they did it better. The Specna bar in the back did not make me feel super confident, and finding replacements might be a little tricky. But I'm sure Specna will release replacement parts as this line becomes maybe more popular and as time goes on. Um, However, it was concerning, and I will raise that concern that that may not hold up well, but it may hold up perfectly fine. I do not have enough experience with the V3 quick change bar system. Mine and my Dytac has lasted for a few years now with some pretty high stress builds, so it could be perfectly fine. As far as gearbox changes and stuff like that's concerned, I think that's about it. But the meat and potatoes of this line and this rifle and where the value truly shines is on the internals, and that's going to be the next chapter. All right, guys, let's talk about where I think this rifle and this platform really is succeeding, and where it is in the market, and what the market's like right now, right? The fact that it has an Aster pre-installed out of the box for me is freaking huge. I've had two E&L Essentials come and the wiring just melt themselves very soon, like within a game or two. Um, LCTs are pretty okay, but they don't have MOSFETs out of the box. So you're going to have to buy one and install one yourself or pay someone to do it. So the fact that this has a MOSFET that you can actually build off of as a builder platform, and that's what I would consider this to be, is a huge plus. Now, I've had my woes with Gate. Alright, I don't think Gate's great anymore. I think they've grown too big and their quality control has gone down immensely. Myself and the tech I go to do the work on my rifles and my teammates, we don't buy Gate anymore. We have swapped to doing Jeftrons, simply because the failure rate of Gates and the issues we were having were too substantial to consider continue running them. However, if I'm going to buy a SEMA or a Specna Arms at the same price point, I might as well get a Specna Arms with an Aster. You know, the Aster itself could last a long time. It could fail, but either way, it's there, and for me, that's a plus. All right, let's talk internal parts. So let's go with the gear set. The gear set is probably the biggest letdown of this rifle, right? They could have gone with some SHS or rocket gears or some other coated gear that's pretty cheap to acquire, and it would have made this gun a standout. Like the ENL and LCT gears, pretty solid as far as stock gears go. These Specna gears are just SEMA gears. They're Chinesium bullshit shit gears. And this rifle in particular, the guy, he shredded his bevel gear. I've shredded SEMA gears, especially in full auto. It's bound to happen. So that was a huge letdown. However, for $20, you can get some SHS or rocket gears, and you're not gonna have a problem anymore. So as for a person that builds guns and repairs guns, not a big deal. But as for someone who's looking for a stand-up pickup gun that they want to run stock and they need it to run for a while, that's kind of a letdown. These Specnas don't have the SEMA magic, I don't think. SEMAs will just run as is for a long, long time without breaking. I don't think this has that kind of magic simply due to the quality of the other parts inside the gearbox. Something's going to give, and it's definitely going to be the gears, okay? But let's move on to those other parts, right? These are the parts that are the shining jewel of this rifle, right? So the piston head, the cylinder head, and the nozzle are all what I would consider budget friendly aftermarket parts. They're not stock parts, right? The piston has pre AOE corrected full metal rack with a pretty solid polymer body. Um, and I swear to you, I'm not joking, it looks exactly like a rocket or an SHS piston. Like, straight up. Like, everything's the same. The rack, the guide rails, like, the body, which is impressive. That's a big plus to me, right? The piston head, I would say, is just like any kind of SHS. It's a single O-ring, metal, so it's gonna hold up. It's gonna last a while. It's not gonna break. The cylinder head is either a single or a double O-ring. Can't quite remember. CNC'd, just like an SHS. The nozzle is an aluminum with an O-ring. Very just like they're all SHS parts on the inside, minus like the gears. Like to be straight up, the gears in the motor. The cylinder, however, was not great. Did not impress me. It was almost like the G&G blue cylinder, where it's that really lightweight coated cylinder, and you could tell like if the piston just decides to tweak out a little bit, it's gonna scratch it right up. Like, was not impressed. Didn't do a good seal. But like swap it with any other, like a ZCI, like a $9 ZCI full cylinder, and like you're good to go, dude. Like, fantastic. So yeah, cylinder not great. The gears terrible. Everything else pretty good. The tappet's pretty beefy. It's pretty thick. I like that. That was impressive. As a guy who usually doesn't care too much about tappet plates in like budget builds, it was nice to see one that was likely a higher quality. Now, I don't know. It could still break. I'm not a professional on tappet plates. I ran stock ones for a while, as I said. All my builds run garters, as I'm told garters are pretty good, but I would say the one that's in is probably comparable to like an SHS. Tappet spring felt pretty solid. So those are all good things. One thing to keep in mind, however, the spring guide, it is a quick change. It is a ball bearing. However, the body is the one that is like has a metal core, and then it's encased in plastic. Now, I've had many that have this, and they crack and they will break over time, and that's definitely not something you want in your replica. Is a bunch of just plastic shards floating around in your gun. That's not great. So I'm not terribly impressed with that. I understand that's like the existing technology, and that's just kind of the standard. So I'm not gonna nag them too much. But since it is a V3 quick change, it's similar to a V2 quick change. So you might be able to very easily find another spring guide that's full metal with a full metal tang and stick that right in there, no problem. So that's kind of it for the internals. Pretty much all budget aftermarket internals for everything that matters. Other than, of course, the gears, the spring guide, those are kind of a letdown, but you gotta cut corners somewhere when you keep a gun this cheap, right? And it seems like that's where they did it. Do I agree with that decision? No, I would have paid $300 for something that had all SHS parts on the inside and just saved me the trouble. But that's not what this is. But I have faith that this would actually be a really good builder gun, especially for like a budget build as like a backup, or even like a rain rifle, or like something you give out to one of your buddies. You could build it out for a few $100 and not have to worry about it for a long time. But let's move on to my final thoughts about this platform and this lineup as a whole. Alright guys, here's my final thoughts. This is definitely going to be a bang for your buck rifle. I think it's worth the money. I think it's a fantastic platform to build off of. Expect it to break, expect to fix it, right? You're not paying that premium price point of like an Arcturus or a high-end E&L, but what you are getting is a fantastic amount of value for what you're paying, right? It's going to have a body like a SEMA, probably going to break. The internals, most of them are aftermarket. Expect to replace a few of them when they break, of course, right? It has an industry leading trigger MOSFET that none of the other rifles, AK rifles for that fact, in the industry around this price point are coming out with. It's just not there. They're not doing it, right? These guys are. They know who they're targeting and the budget that they're targeting, and I think they nailed it, right? I believe this is a great gun to build off of. I think it's a great backup gun. If you're looking for a first time buy, maybe don't get this one. I don't think they're going to last as long as a SEMA would. If you want to get a budget gun as a player who doesn't know how to work on stuff or a player who doesn't want to worry about things breaking, get a SEMA. It's about the same price, but they are far more reliable, in my opinion, than the Specna will be. But if you want a gun that you can tinker on, that you can learn off of, this is the one for it. You know, if you want to do a one and done, spend the money so you don't have to cry later type of deal, I would recommend either a Arcturus AK or an LCT. LCTs are kind of old school. You're going to have to build them out a little bit, but they'll last. The bodies will last. The gearboxes will last. They're pretty good for building. If you guys are looking into E&L, I just can't recommend it. I've had too many fail on me, and I don't like the fact that their bodies don't allow mag compatibility. They're picky with their mags, and I just don't like that philosophy. I'm not big on proprietary. You know, yeah, they might have some of the best bodies in the industry, but it ain't worth the extra stress for me to worry about if my mags feed or not. But, you know, this has just been a quick overview. I will hopefully buy one in a year or two, and I'll revisit and do another review, do an out of the box, do a performance check, do a range check, get some gameplay. I think this is a line and this is a company to keep our eyes on as we go through, and all this technology keeps coming out and innovations keep hitting the market. But right now they're, you know, just coming out. Give them some time, and we'll see where they go. But that's about it. That's all I got from this quick little video and this quick little build.